Hello and welcome to the Empower Hour, my friends. It is Sunday morning where I am. This is a broadcast we do every single Sunday to make sure that people who are moving on from the Jehovah Witnesses, whether it's been 2 weeks or 30 years, it doesn't matter. You're going to learn something that's going to help to take your life to the next level when you log on to this broadcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button right there. And for those of you who are watching live on Facebook, welcome. Always enjoying a live audience. We like to speak to some live people. Be lively, comment a lot as you're seeing this, because sometimes what you share is exactly what someone else is thinking. Today, we're going to be speaking about the power of love and why we need to stay in the frequency of love. This is something that you get disconnected from in that organization. And we're going to talk about why that is so. What is freedom? Real freedom is the freedom to love freely. Real freedom is the freedom to embrace all. Real freedom is understanding that there's a oneness between everyone. When we understand that it's separation that is truly evil, that most evil in this on this world begins with separation, then we start to understand what we were really a part of, and we start to understand how to move forward with life in a way that benefits us. It's so easy to want revenge. It's so easy to be angry, and it's understandable. If those of you out there who are angry, we understand it. There's a lot of hurt that people have to go through. There's a lot of disappointment and loss that people go through. So feeling anger, feeling resentment is natural. And I think it's a natural process that most people go through, but you don't want to stay there. Every emotion is worthy. There's no emotion that's not worthy. Emotions are there for a reason. But remember, the negative emotions that you feel are really there like an alarm. It tells you what to address in your life, what you should address, or it also shows you what you should let go of. Really focus on the things that you can change in life. And if you can't change something, you got to learn where to put it in your life so you can be happy. What's the goal of life? It's you want to be happy. You want to enjoy this experience. You don't want to be marinating in your negative emotions. And what helps us to do that is being connected to our loving feelings. And sometimes we can get really protective of our hearts. We can get really protective of ourselves, where we create these barriers so that you don't get hurt anymore. How many of you have barriers up? Sometimes it's even romantic love, right? People don't want to fall in love again because they've been hurt so bad. People sometimes have a hard time making close relationships, any kind of close relationships, because of all the loss that has been felt in the past, right? All the disappointment. But now we have the freedom to craft a different kind of life, a life that is filled with love. I want to start by explaining why some people might have a hard time tapping into this, and why being a Jehovah Witness did not help with your connection to the feelings of love. When you consider what your life was like as a witness, and the fact that you could be at a meeting, hear an announcement about someone very close to you, even a family member, you hear an announcement that this person has been disfellowshipped. Without knowing what the situation was, without knowing anything, you instantly could cut yourself off from that person. You walk into the Kingdom Hall as friends, and then you walk out thinking you may never talk to this person again. That's not natural. That's not natural at all. That is betraying human nature. That is causing a disconnect within yourself, that you're able to cut people off so easily when they've done nothing to you. This is why Jehovah's Witnesses can tend to be really cut off from their natural human emotions and natural feelings and the natural love that should be in them. They just could cut people off. And just because you leave the religion, it doesn't mean that you instantly reprogram that kind of programming. There's a disconnection. People can do that to their own children. People can kick out a 18, 19-year-old kid. And we all know that witness children are kind of behind as far as knowing how to get along in the real world. But, you'll kick out a young person who is not able to fend for themselves just because they believe differently. They get put in harm's way. There's a disconnection. We've had it in this group where we've helped people who are 18, 19 years old, just kicked out, given on a Tuesday, said, you got to move out by Friday. Well, mom and dad, I don't have a job. I can't take care of myself. Well, that's your problem. You're going to kick out a 18, 19-year-old girl who doesn't know how to fend for herself. You may have screwed up her life forever. First thing she's probably going to do is to jump into the arms of somebody that's going to save her. I've seen situations where people were making really bad choices where there's one case where I said, listen, that's a sex trafficker you're dealing with. She didn't know it. She was too young to even understand what that was, what this person was offering her. But no, that's a sex trafficker. Why would you do that to your naive young girl? Disconnection. Witnesses are disconnected from their natural loving feelings because they're trying to make everything fit this scenario that they've bought into. That, they do some very, very self-serving things to get their paradise. So coming out of the religion, we need to reconnect all of that. That's not natural. You don't put your own children in harm's way. You don't ignore your grandchildren. We've had cases where people, they've had sick grandchildren that they just ignored because their kids were disfellowship, and ill grandchildren that weren't getting any help, no support. That's a disconnection. Witnesses are also disconnected from their natural loving feelings because they can tend to be very judgmental. They judge everything. They judge everyone. There's no natural compassion. There's no understanding. When you truly love somebody, you're there for them through their darkest times. You pull closer to them when they're struggling. If I have a dear friend that is struggling with life and making some bad choices in life, I'm going to pull closer to that person. I'm going to lift my hand out, give them a hand up. Witnesses abandon you when you're struggling. You get punished. You get publicly disgraced. Whether you get kicked out or put on reproof or some kind of restriction, you get disgraced. Again, that's a disconnection from love. When you have a friend in need, a friend that's lost their way, you are their guide. You should be the person that guides them back on the trail. You don't abandon them. It's a disconnection. When you were a witness, sometimes a lot of you felt like you could never do enough in the religion. So it led to a lack of self-love. So let's talk about that. Right now, we're talking about love for others, but really what the problem is for most people, if they're struggling in life, is their self-love. You got to have love for self. It is very difficult to love others properly if you don't have the proper view of yourself. And a lot of ex-witnesses struggle with self-love because in that religion, they never felt like they did enough. They felt the effects of being judged because it's an organization that's based on appearances. How do you appear? It's not based on what's in here. And if you can never do enough, if you feel like you're falling short all the time, and some people have felt like that since they were a child, and they don't carry self-love. It is very, very difficult to be happy. It's very difficult to be in a healthy relationship. It's very difficult to make meaningful friendships, relationships, if you don't love yourself. And for those of you who don't love yourself, it's just a story that you're telling yourself that you're not worthy, which is the furthest from the truth. And some of this doesn't even have to do with the witness thing. Some of it is just you have a lineage of people that didn't love themselves. Sometimes this is carried on from generation to generation, where you have parents that maybe were raised in a harsh environment themselves, where they had parents that couldn't show them love. It was never modeled for them, so that they raised you a certain way. Down deep, they love you. Even with the witnesses, I'm not saying that there's no love in there. They just, it's like a knight uniform, right? The metal. There's a person inside the uniform, but a knight's uniform that there's a metal that's disconnecting. That humanness is inside of it, and that's for a lot of people, not just witnesses. A lot of people don't know how to show love, and it's generational. One generation to the next, where they're not open. There's so much hurt, so much pain. But remember this: life is 10% what happens to us and 90% what we do about it. Say that again. If you're taking notes, write that down. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% what we do about it. So for a lot of us, we are going to be the ones who learn love. We are going to be the ones that stay in the vibration and the frequency of love. We are going to be the ones who understand that all is one. We're all connected. There's no disconnection. When we use words like worldly, that's a disconnection. That makes it us and them. No, we're all one. Love everyone. Start with the love of self and love everyone. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves to love themselves. When you make mistakes, don't beat yourself up over your mistakes. Mistakes are there to teach you. Mistakes are not there for you to beat yourself up over. When you're a witness, you beat yourself up over your mistake. You could have made a mistake today, and 2 years later, you're begging to come back into the organization as if that mistake was last night. No. You make a mistake, you stand up, you dust yourself off, you ponder on the lesson, right? You ask yourself, how did I get in that situation? What led me there? And then you fix it. You learn to fail forward in life. What I mean by that, if you fall forward, what will happen is that, say you trip over something and you stumble and you stumble and you roll forward, you stand up, you look back at what you tripped over and you say, I'll never trip over that again. I see what happened. I learned from it. But when you stand up, you're further ahead than when you tripped. So you move forward in life with the mistake that you made. You actually have moved forward with your mistake, but that's not true with witnesses, because there's so much judgment. You go flying back from your mistake and you never learn. And you get up and you run into the same thing again and you never learn. That's what judgment does. But understanding that mistakes is your greatest teacher, and you don't lose a love for yourself because of the mistakes. The more you judge yourself for your mistakes, the less worthy you will feel, and the more you will be inclined to make the same mistake over and over and over. In your former life, they never taught you to learn from your mistake. They judged you for your mistake. They never told you to take responsibility right? They just read your Bible more or pray more. No, life is our responsibility. Most of the negative things that happen to us are because of the choices that we make. And if we learn that, then most of the blessings in our life are because of the positive choices that we make. And the more you value yourself, the better choices you will make. Don't beat yourself up, just learn. You were taught that you are inherently sinful. Something was just inherently wrong with you. Undeserved kindness. No, deserved kindness. Deserved kindness. This planet is a planet of duality. There's the opposite of everything on this planet. And it's challenging. It's challenging by design. We come here, we learn. Don't tell yourself the story that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that there's nothing you can do to be in worthiness. You can't win when you come from that place. That sets your mind up for failure. Your mind has to be set up to win. Remember, your reality in life is based on what you believe about yourself. You are the creator of your reality with your thoughts. And if you think you're worthy of love, watch your life just change because you're only going to invite into your life what is a match for that worthiness. When you don't value yourself, then you're open for all kind of garbage to come into your life because there's no value. When you get a new car, you wash that car every single weekend, don't you? Because you value that brand new car. If you get a car that's a hoopty, it's a car that you don't value much, and it's just a piece. You don't never wash that car. You let people come in with their muddy feet. You don't care. You're not washing it. It's just a vehicle to get from here to there. But you get a brand new shiny car. You take care of it because you value it. You got to look at yourself even greater than that. And when you love yourself, you have different standards for your life and different standards for yourself. Compassion. When you have compassion for others, it's easier to have compassion for yourself. We live in a world, this is just not witnesses. We live in a world that is very unforgiving, very not compassionate. You see it on social media all the time where people just are beating people up that are down. People are down. You read the comments and some of the posts, and there's no compassion. No, you got to have compassion for people. When the more judgmental you are on others, the more judgmental you will be on yourself when you fall. The more you judge others, the harsher you will be on yourself when it's your turn. And we all get a turn. If you think that you're going to live this existence as a human being and not stumble and fall, you're fooling yourself. So learn to have compassion, live in love. When we were raised in an organization that was waiting for the destruction of billions of people, how can that not disconnect you from love? See, it's a very twisted way of seeing things. Oh my God, can't you just aren't you so excited to see your lost loved ones in the new order? Or does that mean that billions of people have to die so I could see my loved ones? Isn't that kind of selfish? That I get a little bit of what I want, but everybody else needs to die? So that's a pretty sick thought when you think about it. Very self-serving, very, very selfish. That I'm anxiously awaiting for God to slaughter and kill 7, 8 billion people. That's going to disconnect you from your humanness if that's what you're hoping for. No, if God needs to kill 8 billion people, then drop the first thing of fire right on my head. Because that sounds evil to me. I don't want to live in that world. I'd rather live in a world where people learn to love each other, where people have compassion, when people understand that not everybody have the same experience. How am I going to judge someone who grew up in an awful, awful environment? I've spoken many times as a motivational speaker. Sometimes I speak at the youth detention center here where I live. And when you hear the stories of what these kids go through, how they never knew their father who was in jail their whole life, and their mother was on drugs and prostituting herself, and this kid is trying to take care of his younger brothers doing illegal activities. And when you look at that and you go, how am I going to judge that? How am I going to judge that child? Look at what that child grew up around. How am I going to say he's unworthy when there's zero love in his life? What that child is missing is love. What his mother was missing was love. What his father is missing was love. And we're going to judge. That's the person God needs to destroy. No, what that person needs is love and compassion, and to be shown that they matter. And I personally am not interested in serving a God that does not see things that way. Love. That's the freedom that you have, is to love your neighbor. And that's in the Bible, isn't it? To love your neighbor, to love yourself, and to have a love for humanity. And this applies even to those who are still in the religion, that are doing things that hurt you, are doing things that disappoint you. Don't retaliate with anger. Rise up into love. Have some compassion for the fact that they're just brainwashed and programmed. Never lose the viewpoint, or never forget that you once thought like them. See, that gives me compassion because I did all that stuff. Just because I woke up doesn't mean that people are going to wake up the second I wake up. I did that stuff. I shunned my friends. I did all of it. So I have compassion for people who are still in it. I have compassion for people who are still under the control of emotional blackmail, is what the witnesses do. But when you see me, all you feel is love. I'm going to break that wall down just with love. Whenever I'm around my family, I show them love. See, love is like water that drips on a stone. When water's dripping on a stone, initially it doesn't feel like it's doing anything, because a stone is much harder than water, isn't it? But if that water keeps dripping on the stone, eventually that stone has a giant hole right through it. So learn to love yourself and love others despite of. Every interaction you have with people that are trying to hurt you through emotional blackmail, love through it. Don't hate through it. Don't return the same energy. See, when they do that, it's not them. It's their programming. It's not them. Under that night outfit is a gushy human being. They do love you. Some of you who are going through the shunning and feel like the disappointment of the shunning, and you feel like your parents and your siblings and the people you love don't love you, they do love you. Most of them. They're just under the spell of mind control. They've been emotionally manipulated. They are disconnected from themselves. But you keep firing shots of love like Cupid's arrow. You just keep love bombing them. That's what they don't know how to respond to. They know how to respond to anger. They expect anger. They know when they're doing something that's hurtful to you, and they expect an angry response. Don't give them that. Give them what they don't expect. Master love. You'll get further with love than you ever will retaliating the same energy. You see, as your energy rises, as your frequency rises, and you come here, right? When you get triggered, what happens when you get triggered is you're coming down to dance with them at their level. No, you maintain this. You maintain this, and you just shoot darts of love down here, right? And until you become the source of that. You let them know you love them. They might not respond the way you think they should respond. They probably won't. But sometimes the response is very, very not indicative of how they really feel. Say if you sent your mom or dad that's shunning you, and you send them a beautiful letter or a beautiful card, or just caught them up with your life, they may not respond. Don't take that as hurt. They're not responding because they don't know how to respond. They're confused. They're in conflict. They may respond with anger. I told you not to contact me anymore. You stop sending me this. You know why they're angry? They're angry because you're giving them conflict. They're not really, it's conflict. They don't want to deal with the conflict. That's what's really happening. So don't always listen to the response, because the response is not always indicative of what's going on. They're responding because you give them conflict. So stay in love, my friends. It will get you a whole lot further than anything else in life. Stay in love. Let's bring our panel up. This should be an interesting discussion. Who'd like to start us off?
Yeah, I can start off. Yes, I really do. Excuse me. Appreciate the point you brought out, which I've always kind of treasured. Which, ironically, I learned at a convention from Jehovah's Witnesses, was a 90% attitude. How life is 90% attitude and 10% situation. And the mistake that most people make is they put 90%, of their energy and of their thoughts on the 10%. And that's not a good investment. You're only going to go so far, literally, even numerically. So, a lot of times you can really create your world once you realize the power, how intense the power of your thoughts and the adjustment of your mindset. It truly reflects the world that you will be in. So that's something that I've always appreciated. So, we're going to the witness background or in any other negative background, but specifically right now, we're going to witness background. Their viewpoint on the vital aspects of life was just simply wrong. It was the wrong attitude. And the challenge is that, well, when it begins, is that we absorb that wrong attitude. And so it's just simply of just changing that attitude, we're going to vital aspects in life. So, you have to, um, create something for you to resonate with that, whether it's like we have all these negative statements that was made to you during childhood or from the religion, you can write down those ones that really hurt you or that you resonate with, and then, make another affirmation, I should say, with that to kind of like contradict that. And I would say, make a comment that's right, but it's really making a comment that's love. Because life is not necessarily about right and wrong. All the time, it's really about love. So changing the wrong attitude is by doing it with love. So you make some loving comments, to counteract those comments that was made to you growing up, you know, and those who resonate with the more of a spiritual, godly viewpoint, you can think about how God views you. How does God view you as a person? Sometimes our minds are so warped up, we can't even come up with a loving thought for ourselves. So for those who resonate with the godly, God aspect, think about how God views you, the things that He was saying to you as you was living through your life, and write that down, and maybe put your thoughts aside, just sit on the bench and just focus on how God views you. And if anyone say anything or treat you anything differently from that, assume it from another source. And don't insult God by putting your energy on that.
It's all energy, right? So whenever I'm with family and things come up, right? For most people, not for some people are absolutely completely shunned, but for most people, things come up. It could be a funeral, whatever. Things come up in your life where you got to be with some of those people. I tell myself before I am around family members that I am love. I am love. And when I'm around them, they respond to that energy. My energy is much bigger because I say this to myself. And people are no different than animals. Animals pick up energy. Animals, those of you who have pets, you know your pets know when somebody's a bad person, they don't like them. If they know when somebody's nervous or scared, they know all of this. And people are the same. So when I have this frequency, when I have this energy, they they respond to me, not the opposite way around. I don't come around witnesses when I'm around them and act like I'm small and act like I don't belong and act like, I'm the one that laughing. No, no. I am love. I just hug everybody. I shake every hand. I act like I belong and they respond to me. I don't respond to them. Okay, keep that in mind. Whenever you're going to be around people of that world, of that witness reality, say to yourself, "I am love." You're gonna respond. Oh, you getting this hug? you getting this hug? I hug everybody. I'll see them at their cards. Sometimes when I'm back where I'm from, I'll see witnesses that, and I know them. I go right up to their cards. I hug every one of them. I got a little earring in my ear. I don't act like I'm worldly. No, I know you. I'm not going to act like I don't know you. Just like a classmate, when I see somebody from high school, listen, you're not in my life anymore. And I was years and years, decades ago, right? But I hug them too. I don't act like I don't know you. You getting this hug? They don't know how to react because I'm not playing the game. I don't play your game. I play mine. Okay. Next, Judy.
I was just thinking about the analogy you made with the like the suit of armor that people wear, because I forgot and maybe set myself up for I forgot to keep my expectations low, because when you keep your expectations low, then you don't get hurt. And how it is with family member, in this case it's with my daughter, and it's like that soft shunning. And I expected something that didn't happen, and then I allowed myself to get hurt. I did stop myself before reacting, and I thought about like it is like a hard shell, and just like a chain link, there's a chink that you have to get an arrow through, like the arrow of love, that takes time, and it's hard to find that, but there's a chink in there somewhere that will eventually get through. Or even like the analogy that you made with the water on a stone, that's true, but that takes a lot of time before it actually makes that kind of thing. So it's trying to, because when you don't come from when you forget about the love part, and it's natural to get hurt, but to try to respond in love, then that brings us down, and that you can feel the energy being sapped from you, and then you're like, I don't like the person I am today. I don't want to feel resentful. I don't want to feel hurt. I want to come from a place of love. So eventually there's going to be a chink that will get through, and maybe I won't, just like that water on the stone, maybe we won't live to see that, but it does, eventually happen.
I like the part you talked about it being long term. That helps. I try to look at things from a long term viewpoint, understanding that life changes for everybody, understanding that in life, everybody falls in their butt at some point. That's just life. It's a roller coaster. And when I think of people that may be shunning me, my own son shuns me. It's been 3 years. Life was going to kick your butt one day. And when you think back when you were a witness, there were times that you had things going on that you did not want to talk about to another witness. Because you can get turned in. I mean, you'll get in trouble, or you'll get judged, or it's not, there are things in life that it's not comfortable to talk about to a judgmental person. And sometimes when you keep showing love and you're just a loving person and a non-judgmental person, you will probably be that person that they can reach out to and talk to. Like for you, Judy, one day your wife might have, I mean, your daughter might have marital issues that she can't talk to anybody about. Might be you, right? So in the long term, or they get disillusioned. Maybe something happens in the congregation where they're super disappointed with something that happened with an elder or whatever, and they're just disillusioned. We all were there. Most of us were had a time zone where we were very disillusioned before we left. And if I had someone I could talk to that I knew understood the experience, I would have went straight to that person. Right. So playing the long term, understanding that things change in life and understanding what you can change and what you can't change. If you can't change something, you got to play the long term and not be caught up in that the emotion that just keeps you down all the time. Sometimes those are the greatest stories, right? You look back like, oh my God, they woke up. You know, maybe one day, and I'll say this. So when it happens, not if, when it happens, remember I told you all this. When I get on do a YouTube video or I do one of my conferences and my son gets up there telling this story about, oh my God, I woke up, I was shunning my dad. That's the worst thing I ever did. Tens of thousands of people will watch that YouTube video, right? So that was the setup. What I'm going through is the setup for something great. I tell myself that story instead of being so discouraged of what's happening in this moment. No, this is a setup for a great story one day. And y'all gonna go, oh, I remember Rodney said that on the Power Hour. Didn't he say that 2 or 3 years ago? Yeah. So I play it out like that for myself. Tell yourself a story that works for you. Next. Debbie?
I love what you just said, Rodney, because part of your son's testimony will be, and my dad never stopped loving me through it all. That will be part of the powerful testimony that he will have, because that love that we inherently have, that we all have, can truly not be interrupted by the organization. It can, like you were saying, it can feel like you're disconnected, but it's still there. And so when I personally left, I felt the pain of the initial, like, oh, they're really not going to talk to me. Okay, let me just let this out and release that expectation. But am I still holding my love inside of me for them? Yes. I love them regardless of what they're doing to me. And that is the unconditional love that we don't experience as Jehovah's Witnesses, right? So even though for years some people didn't speak to me, they could still feel that connection, even though I'm not in the same space with them. So when they did cross my path, it was a huge experience of like, oh, she's the same person. Like, yes, only thing I'm not doing is going to a meeting, but I'm still that same Debbie, right? So I love them regardless. To this day, they feel it. I have had friends who have left, and love, right, when they were going through their transition, showed up as me not attacking their beliefs, yeah, or trying to shred their beliefs. I would just hold a loving space for them to recognize on their own what I already knew. And so they can never feel any acrimony towards their journey in their interaction with me, because I just held that powerful force, because love is more powerful than anything on this planet. And if we can get that message out to, folks who are leaving and they're having a huge emotional upheaval behind the fact that their whole family isn't speaking to them, it's important for them to recognize that the love is still there, and that they have to remember to go underneath the indoctrination, the mind control, the experience of the shunning, the idea behind the shunning, in order to stay connected. And that is something the organization cannot interrupt, is the love that we really have for each other.
Yeah. And again, like you said, love is the most powerful force on the planet. And people can't help but to respond to it. Sometimes they try to hide it from you, but they're responding to it. It's affecting them. It's simply a higher frequency, and it's much stronger. It's kryptonite to what they're trying to hold on to. It's literal kryptonite to it. But it does take a reframing. Sometimes being in love we can be in this deception that it's weak. We can have this false story that anger is strong, that resentment is strong, that fighting against something is strong. No, love is stronger, but it takes humility to open it up. So have the humility to take that higher road, to stay in love, because it's actually a much more powerful force than all the negative emotion. Don't fight. Don't play their game. Their game doesn't matter at all. I don't play their game at all. I don't play the role of apostate. I don't use those words. I don't care. I'm just me. I don't play your game. Sometimes people ask me, "Hey, Rodney, you're not this fellowship, are you?" I don't play your game. I don't use your words. I don't play your game. I'm not this fellowship, but I'm not going to tell you if I am or not, because I don't play your game. I don't use your words. That's all your game. My game is love. I'm going to give you this hug. That's what I am. I'm going to give you this hug. Okay, Christine, and then Jack.
Need a t-shirt, free hugs. I want to say, I really like you said, like, hold your vision of what you want, because then you're in the frequency, or you're in the mindset of what it is that you actually want to create, whether it's having a connection with someone else, not the family, if that's too painful, but being in that space of love. You're making a choice. And I feel we get to decide, are we going to sit in fear or love? Those are your two choices. And it's okay to be in the fear or in shame or anger, or what we would say is like a lower kind of emotion where you feel lower, but to hold the polarity of it. You can hold that and contentment, and what does satisfaction look like, or something that you're doing in your life that now you are the one in control. You're not a victim. Nobody's a victim. And I feel when we can move out of blame, which the etymology of the word is to be lame, then you're a victim when you're blaming someone else, even the organization. So self-responsibility is like, okay, this is my vision. This is what I want to hold. Now what's in the way? And to me, it's like a video game, right? Slay your dragon. So you can collect the gold coin, but now you're fully in control and you're not at the mercy of other people's actions or what they're going to do, because that sucks. You don't want to live in that kind of reality. You want to be able to create what it is that you want. And I really do feel it's, making that choice of all emotions are welcome. You said that earlier, right? They're worthy. All parts of us are welcome at the table. And so if something's coming up, it could be from when you were younger, something in the subconscious that's ready to clear. We don't know, but just honor it in the present moment. And then what's your vision? Stay focusing on that, because then you're going to be in that frequency of moving forward versus looking in the back. I don't know where the story came from, but when you're driving, the rear view mirror is smaller on purpose. You're not looking there. We're not looking in the back. It's like, where are you going? Where are you moving forward? And who's in your court right now? Who is around you, or where's your support? Because that's, those are your sunshine people, or the people to be within the moment. And if the others come back or interact with you, always from a place of love. Love wins always. There's no right or wrong or trying to prove that, your stance is right. It's like everyone's on their own soul journey, and it's not our responsibility to tell anyone what theirs is.
100%.
Yeah.
And understanding that with anyone, this is not just a issue with witnesses and ex-Jehovah Witnesses. This is with everyone. As you grow, you leave people behind. You outgrow people. And instead of looking at it like I'm being shunned or soft shunned by certain people, I just realized that the world I live in makes no sense to them. Like if I were to talk to my brothers, the stuff that I love talking about, I go deep. Like my two brothers are very shallow in their conversation. I sound weird to them. stuff I like to talk about. It's just not a part of their world. So you take the whole witness thing out of it. There are lots of people that were never witnesses that I've outgrown in life. Right. When I talk to them, I got to kind of bring my conversation down to where they're at. So understanding life in general, you will outgrow people. And thinking that everybody's supposed to be on the journey with you, because when you're a witness, everybody stays the same. That's why you got the same friends from 10 years old to 60. You're on the same people, right? Because everybody is moving with the same belief. Nobody's outgrowing each other. You're sheep. Sheep all stick together. They keep telling you be sheep like, so you're with the herd, right? No. There's a difference between pigeons and eagles. You're not the same, right? So in life, be okay with being an eagle. Be okay with going on your journey, and not everybody's supposed to go with you. Some show back up later. They start to grow themselves, but in life, you're just gonna outgrow people, and that's for everybody. That's the truth for everybody. Okay, Jack.
One thing that I noticed that myself I had to learn, and many people who leave the organization have to learn, is respectfully disagree. Because when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, we couldn't disagree. Like you had to believe everything the other person believes, and the moment you say one thing different, it's automatically you could be labeled as bad association at first, but later on it could be as extreme as an apostate. But very often when people flip to the other side, they become so resentful towards the religion that they can't find anything good in it. They're like, this is a paradise for pedophiles. Everybody's a hypocrite. Everybody's, abusing alcohol, and they're just hiding behind the closed door, and then just putting everybody as evil inside the organization. And they want you to agree because they're thinking you're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. You left. You got hurt as well, and they have this very strong resentment that very often colors their biases, and they want you to disagree and agree. And if you don't agree, then they're like, they don't know what to do with it. It's a very useful skill to, first of all, learn how to disagree, so you don't attack the other person. You show them, oh, that's just not my experience. You don't say, oh, you're wrong. You just say, oh, this is my experience is a little bit different. Or you say, well, this does not convince me. I didn't find enough evidence to believe this yet. And just not be confrontational instead of saying you're wrong and you're just misled or you're lying. Because one of the things that we have to learn when we leave this organization is to respectfully disagree. And the fact that we have different beliefs or opinions doesn't have that strong of a merit on our friendships. Before, it was the number one. The important thing is, like, before I know how to treat you, I have to know what label to put on you. Are you an interested one? Are you a worldly person? Are you a baptized brother? Are you a pioneer? Like, we had to have that label in order to know how to treat that person. Today, it's different because we don't use those labels anymore, but we have to judge how to treat one another based on people's behavior, and that takes a little bit more time to get to know them. But that moment of, oh, you know what? I don't have to agree with them. They believe something different. My experience is different, and that's okay. We're still friends. Maybe 10 years from now, they will change their mind. Maybe 10 years from now, I will change my mind. We have to leave ourselves that little gap saying, okay, based on the knowledge, experience, and belief that I have today, this is what convinces me that this is correct. But maybe in the future, I'll discover something more and I'll change my mind. And that respectful disagreement, it's huge, because that's where you grow. If I meet a new person, that person tells me something, an idea that I never heard before, it seems wacky, it seems crazy. If I automatically reject him, I will never grow. But by listening to that person, I don't have to agree, but maybe there's something that convinces him that this is true. I want to know what it is. I want to know what evidence convinced him. And maybe I don't know something. Maybe I'll learn something from him, or he will learn something from me. That's where the growth is with this respectful disagreement. And when we become friends and love each other, despite of the differences.
You know, what Jack is talking about is unconditional love, where love is the umbrella that covers all of it. You're already in a space of love. Then you can have these, conversations and agreements and disagreements or whatever it is. When we were witnesses, we needed to qualify for the love. So you needed to connect on your beliefs first, and then I can love you. So there's the difference, right? When you love someone, it's like being in a house, right? Someone's looking out the window on the back of the house, and somebody's looking out the window in the front of the house. In the front of the house, you see the ocean. The back of the house, you see the mountains. Both things are true at the same time, but if you're trying to convince the other person of what is out the window, right? You're never going to agree. You got to agree to say, this is what I see what you see, but we still can live in harmony in this house together, because that's what unconditional love is. Let's move on to Gary.
When I was, probably in my early 20s, I had the displeasure of working with someone who was not the worst person in the world. I'm pretty sure he wasn't a mass murderer or a pedophile or a terrorist or anything. But he just had qualities and behaviors that were so negative and such, everybody just didn't like this guy, that I just decided, I wish I never met this guy. I couldn't see, because even the most negative, terrible people you can learn something from. And I just thought, I don't think there's any benefit to have ever even met this guy. So I decided he's not somebody I wish I hadn't met. Well, as life went on, I don't know, maybe a couple of decades later, somebody else came along that I started to make a list actually in my head of people that I wish I had never met. And I would do that, I guess, because it'd be my way of saying, well, this guy's really miserable. I really don't like this guy, but he's not so bad that he's on my list, so that's why I did it. But I think the list got to be maybe 3 people, and I'm in my 60s now, so that's pretty good, I guess, 3 people that I wish I had never met. But I was just thinking the other day, because I've met a few people in recent years that I had to decide, should they be on a list like that? It's like, no, because everybody has value. And I thought, you know what? I don't remember anything about those guys that used to be on that list. I mean, if I think about it, I could probably think of why with one of them. The third person, I don't even remember who it was. But with one of them, I could probably remember why he made me so uncomfortable. With the first one, I really don't even remember. So that's the thing about hatred and frustration and resentment, is that you have to have a really good memory to continue to hate somebody for years and years and years. Because what did they really do that's so lasting that so you have to really have a good memory for bad things. And we also have to have a good memory to love somebody that we haven't seen in 20 or 30 years. But those good memories will make us feel good. When we remember, if we're trying to remember something that really caused us to hate somebody, that's just bubbling up hatred inside of us. It's not healthy at all. So it's just so much easier to just sort of forget. And I know, like you talked about before, how all emotions have value. They all have purpose. And so the process of leaving the JWs and creating a new life is a grieving process, really. And there are many facets to that, including hatred, resentment, and anger, and other emotions as well. So they have their place. So it's not like, hating somebody was like you're just the offscouring of the earth. No, it's just something you went through, but hopefully you get over it at some point. So to feel like somebody, maybe a close relative shunned me and it's been going on for 20 years, and to be, as you always use the word, marinating in that 20 years later, you just have to have a really good memory for bad things. And it's just so much more healthy to remember the good things about that person. And again, it comes down to love, is just to look at them in a way that even if we don't have the opportunity to show it to them, to actually love them in our hearts.
I think that when other people affect us, when you're shunned or someone looks down on you, it affects you when you see yourself through their eyes, through their lens. It doesn't affect you if you see yourself through your lens. Right? You're just operating at a higher place. You're almost, you're seeing this as smaller than this. So always see yourself through the lens that you choose to see yourself through. When you get triggered by the way someone treats you or looks at you, it's because you are seeing yourself through their eyes, and then you don't feel good about yourself. Don't let that happen. Always stay in your power and understand that you've risen above where they were, that you were once here and now you're here. And if you stay in your power, this won't affect you so much. It's almost like, take note of this. I often look at witnesses this way. If I knew someone had a learning disability and was 40 years old and looked like a normal man, his exterior did not show that he had this learning disability, and he had the mind of a 6-year-old, looked totally normal, had the mind of a 6-year-old, and I walk by this guy and he says something insulting to me. Well, at first I want to react, but then I see who it is. Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to take that so serious because I understand he's incapable of growing beyond this level. And he's seeing the world through the eyes of a 6-year-old. I look at witnesses the same way. They're incapable of growing beyond where they're programmed. So when they say things, it's from a stunted place, that there has been no growth in decades for many of them, and they are disallowed from growing. So I don't take what they say very seriously at all. And just like that man who doesn't have the capacity to learn past a certain age, I'm gonna just give him a hug. And even that person is gonna melt when they receive that love. Dean, you got something for us?
Yeah, I was just going to actually adding on where you are. I always remembered, I don't know how many years ago it was that I first heard the expression that hurt people hurt people. And I remember reflecting on that and just thinking about the fact of that the love actually starts with yourself. You need to love yourself with all your foibles. And I think one of the things, and maybe I don't think it's necessarily something that you're coming from just from being a JW, but you judge yourself very harshly on what you should and shouldn't do and what you could have done, and you can't forgive yourself maybe for being misled or whatever. And once you learn to love yourself and with all your foibles and realize that that was part of your path, then you can give other people the benefit of the doubt. Well, that's their path, and allow them that path that they need to go on that path. And if that path eventually melds up and they follow maybe the example of you, that's great, but that's not the end point, the end game. Yeah, the end game is to love yourself. And then the other thing I made a note of as well is I remember we tend to think of love as a binary thing. It's like, well, I'm giving love to these people and I'm waiting. When's it going to come back? It's not how it works. Love is a flow, and you've just got to give the love out whenever and however. You know, if you feel there's a need, and I often say, if your heart moves you to make contact with somebody just to see how they were doing, then do that. I mean, I had a long conversation with somebody that, yeah, long story, but in a very bad place today, and I just happened to phone him to want to catch up with him, an acquaintance. I don't know him very well, but just the pure messages going backwards and forwards, you could see that it meant something to him. And you kind of going, you know, when you hear somebody, like, you know, somebody will make a comment at the office to say, gee, so-and-so was in a bad headspace, and they will pick up the phone 2 days later, phone the guy, how are you doing? And so you want to grab a coffee, you want to get together, and you have no idea what that does, because that's just allowing the flow of love. And by the same token, when you are allowing that love to just flow, you forget about your own crap. You don't get caught up in your own shit in your head with this, like, yeah, look what's happening, and I'm wrong, and it's just so terrible and so sad. You extend your life out, which is really what it is, There's a great South African expression. It's called Ubuntu, and roughly translated into English, it means I am because others are. And it's that whole concept of you living your life through your interactions with others. And I think that's the thing is to me, it's just the case of give love, don't expect it to be binary. It's rather a flow of energy, and it's going to come back to you. There may be a lag, but it's going to come back.
You know, just try to make the witness thing as small as you can make it. People are just people. Everyone is connected, whether they know it or not. Everyone is connected. And try not to look at it through that lens. You know, when my mom passed back in 2020, you know, typically there was no witnesses that reached out to me, but one guy, his name was Sean. I was close to when I was, 20, 21 years old. And he tracked me down somehow, some way. He found my number, and he sent his condolences. He's an elder today. And I was like, that's really cool. I really appreciate that. The witness stuff aside, it doesn't matter. Man, I love that you did that. And I love this dude. And you ever need anything from me, I got you. It has nothing to do with the religion. You know, that's just a man who still felt a connection with his boy, and I appreciate that. And just stay in that space of love. Make the religion as small as you can make it. People are people. Try to see them as people. They're on their journey. We don't have any right to tell somebody that they've got to be on our journey. Everybody, we're no different than witnesses if we try to convince everybody to think like us, right? They're on their journey. When people are ready to kind of wake up to more, I like to say it's kind of like the movie The Truman Show, if you ever watched that. Once he became aware that there was more, he had to get out of there. Not that his life was even bad. It was perfect in that little Truman world. But once he knew there was more, he was ready to get out of there. So when people are ready, then we'll be there for them. But either way, we need to stay in love. So, panel, thank you for joining me. You could be doing anything on your Sunday, but you took some time to be with us today. Thank you so much. For those of you who are watching live, thank you so much. And for those of you on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and share this with everyone you know so people can have more of a blueprint on how to move their lives forward. Everyone have a fantastic Sunday fun day, and we will see you next week.